All right, welcome everyone. We have a very special show this week. We had a lot going on, not only in the Tesla world as far as news, but also we had a very exclusive event this past week that even Brian came all the way from Oregon, about 12 to 14 hours one way, just to see. So we're going to get into all of that. Shout out to the Tesla Bull Rider for making the deck this week. But Hans and Brian, how are you guys doing? How was your week?
I'm doing great. It was 12 hours to Santa Rosa where I stayed, another 2 hours to San Jose for the Cybercab thing. But what an adventure. It was so worth it because the engineers stood there at the rope for hours and answered questions from me, from everyone. And when I wasn't asking questions, I was listening to the questions and answers other people were getting. And I've got a whole series of videos of it. First video comes out when this show ends at 9 a.m. So I hope you all tune in for that because it was insane. And we had a fantastic light show before it. Shout out to Simon from X Light Shows IO. What a week it's been.
Well, awesome. We're going to get into all of that. But first, we need to look at the stock because that's not really what we do, but kind of. But the stock has been continuing to hit 52-week highs. So, and I think I saw the last post was Sawyer's. I mean, you're talking 2.5 to 2 and 3/4 of a year, like week highs. $375 up 51%. We got another, 25 days in the month, 24 days in the month left. And so it's been just continuously on a tear, as you see. Trump continued to, I think, drop in his new administration, and I think a lot of the stocks are continuing to rally. So just remember, there can always be a dip at the beginning of the year, but this has been really, really cool to watch. Okay, so this was a big one this week. I thought it's important that we should get into this. It's kind of somewhat old news because I know we've probably talked till our faces were a different color just about, this back in June and really the whole half of the year. But this long story short, good old Judge McCormick, our favorite Delaware judge, she ruled for the second time, second or third time, either one. I've lost count, but against Elon Musk's 2018 compensation package, even after the shareholders voted, and I think it was a record number. I think of any public company to ever have this representation. I think it was over 70% of all shares that are in the market. Their voice was heard at this vote. And so, but really, again, in my opinion, just noise. It was just unneeded. I mean, it's one thing if it was, valid concerns and thoughts and, we're dealing with, but this is something that should have been put in a coffin, and we have been moving on, especially given all of the, with the election and the way things are going right now. This is just really, I don't think, knowing Elon, I don't think it's bothering him, especially given all the stuff that he has going on right now. I think probably earlier when it first happened, that probably bothered him a lot. But this hopefully should be something that is just quick and easy to button up and get appealed, in my opinion. But what were your guys' thoughts when this broke? I mean, was this something you guys even thought would happen at the end of the year or you would hear about?
I thought it was going to happen Thanksgiving week because it's a very good time to bury news. So that the fact that it came a little bit later was more surprising. Nothing you can do with a petition can change the verdict. The verdict had already been rendered. All it could do is adjust what the payment amount is going to be, what the actual details of the final settlement are. And it's clear that Judge McCormick was never going to be reasonable. You could say, well, the 50 billion is unreasonable. 0 is also unreasonable, but 350 million in legal fees, totally reasonable. Come on, that doesn't make any sense. So I didn't think this was going to end in anything other than the rare chance in a million shot that Judge McCormick would suddenly be reasonable or that it would be appealed. And I'm confident it will be won on appeal because the precedent would set. I know there are a lot of people petitioning saying, if the company you love is headquartered in Delaware, tell them to move. And I think that's premature. I think that's not going to work or be helpful. But if the verdict is upheld on appeal, you won't need to petition those companies. They will leave.
Yeah, I also was, not surprised at all. This was pretty much to be expected. We knew that she was probably going to make this decision before the end of the year. We also knew, to Brian's point, like this is unprecedented to have a shareholder vote after a verdict has been rendered. There's not really any precedent for her to lean on that would force her to take that into account after she's had a verdict. And it would have taken something that would have forced her to go back and change her prior verdict in order for her to actually do that. So yeah, completely not surprised here. And I do think this will be fertile ground. Yeah, can't wait to see the appeal. There's going to be lots of interesting stuff to go on there. I do agree with Elon Musk in principle here that the shareholders, I feel like the shareholders were sufficiently informed in this case. I think that Judge McCormick's ruling that, Elon strong-armed the board or used undue influence here is pretty much irrelevant. And I can get into some specifics on why I kind of stand on that point, but one of the things that I actually do have a critique of Tesla and the board of directors of Tesla specifically for is that this pay package was unprecedented, and being unprecedented, they didn't know how big it was going to be. If they had known how big it was going to be, I'm sure that would have caused them to probably take some extra steps of due diligence to tighten it up legally before they engaged in it to begin with. So part of this is just, no one, including Elon, expected this pay package to be worth above $50 billion within 6 years of the time that it was initially issued. But the way that they structured and engaged in this negotiation is open to scrutiny, and because it's so unique, really what they did is they tried to structure a compensation package that was based on more of a venture capital style arrangement, and they used venture capital style negotiating practices to settle that compensation package. And that's just not something that is done in public companies really at all. But they were expecting, let's get a venture capital type return also in the public markets. You have to create massive growth in both deliveries, in earnings, and revenues. They had all these milestones, and in order for Elon to get paid, he had to deliver huge growth for investors, which is why investors were good, approved the compensation plan in the first place. Is yeah, we don't mind if he gets paid a lot as long as we make a lot of money along the way. And that's really what she took issue with. She's like, you can't use venture capital style negotiating practices to structure a venture capital style compensation package in the public markets, because in the public markets, we expect these negotiations to be very zero sum, very adversarial, and not in a positive sum structure the way that they set it up. And I think that should have all been anticipated beforehand, when if you know that you're doing something that is unprecedented in the court of Delaware, that there's no, you don't have case law that the judges can fall back on that shows where other companies have done things this way, then that means it's really on you. If you're going to be a trendsetter and break the mold, that you've really got to dot your I's and cross your T's. And to be frank, the Tesla board absolutely just did not do that. Their depositions in this case were awful when you think about how the judge is comparing the way that they went about this negotiation and all of the case law that she's reviewing and other examples. It's just they didn't do anything in the normal way. We kind of like that they didn't do it in a normal way, but they should have done a little bit better job of being able to defend why they were doing something differently.
See, this is why Hans is here, because I was just going to say the judge is a hater, and I was just going to leave it at that. But man, Hans, that was
that is also true. But I mean, like, you can't just expect that you're not going to have a hater judge.
right.
Like they should have done better homework. Like, this is one of the most valuable companies in the world. We need top.
Well, it wasn't at the
tier
time, though.
handling.
It wasn't at the time, though.
It was still really big.
It was expected to be, otherwise the comp plan wouldn't matter.
Yeah. And
Right.
that's a great point, that if the comp plan was going to be hit, it was going to be. And so you need to prepare for the fact that if you achieve those goals, that you're going to have the scrutiny that comes with being the largest company on earth.
Facts. Well said, Hans. What? I'm not gonna lie to you guys, man. We have a good group. This is it's pretty awesome to have you guys here.
You can lie a little.
Hey, it's the holiday season, time to suck up. No, but yeah, I would agree. I think I agree with everything. For me, actually, to be honest with you, I would say even with Hans, like, I agree in that, like, for me, it was not ever a thing that, I think when it happened, no one in their like mind ever thought it would happen in 2 years, right? Nobody would have thought that NVIDIA would go up 1,000%. And, like, no one would have in their blue mind would have thought that, right? Like, and so I think at that point, either they overlooked it, the Tesla legal, but, like, this should have never been even up for discussion in any court. It was so this to reach these goals seemed completely unrealistic in the short period. And then even the point where he's tweeting about going private. I mean, it's just like around the same time, right, where all of these packages and other things like that are happening. So I think it's it's a real bummer. I mean, even Elon, was out talking about it. And so shout out to Jason DeBolt. Yes, Judge Kathleen McCormick takes all of Elon's Delaware court cases for some strange reason, and she goes to lengths to bend the law against Elon. In her post-trial opinion on Elon's compensation package, the first line was, and I kid you not, okay, I did not copy that whole thing, but long story short, she clearly is. The
line was something to the effect of, "Is the richest man getting paid too much?" So it's like starting out just like displaying her bias pretty blatantly.
Yep. And Elon comments, she is a far left activist pretending to be a judge. Well, I think there's a lot to be said about the comment that Hans just requoted, along with the fact that she seems to be taking a lot of his cases. So I agree with Joe, definitely a hater, but based on even the things that I think Brian and Hans were sharing, there's obviously still a lot more to this. So hopefully this is, in my opinion, this is a nothing burger in the next couple months. Hopefully we move past this. Hopefully this is something that, like next year, we know what next year is going to be about. It's going to be about Doge efficiency. It's literally going to be about the weekly podcast. Obviously Tesla's going to continue to do a lot of stuff, but like, this should be behind us, in my opinion.
Right.
Any other thoughts on this?
Well, I'll say this. I think for the judge, and we see this a lot with in and around Elon Musk. Like, no matter what he's put his toe into, like, people want to latch onto that for their own gain because of, the name associated with what could possibly be in and around it. You know what I mean? So I think that she realizes that, this could catapult her in some type of way. And maybe that goes along with the activist part of it, you know what I mean? Which is why she's going to take so many of Elon's things, because she wants to be the one who goes down in history as this person or whatever. But we see this all the time. There was just something was just posted. Lucid Gravity posted the size specs, and it was like, it's like an inch, and it has all this cabin space, but it's also an inch shorter than the Model X. And it's like, okay, like what about like the Telluride, and what about, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like more vehicles in that segment. It's like they literally, I was like, what? But But I mean,
but the F-150 has the super mega frunk, right? Okay.
So I think people just realize that no matter how much you hate on the brand and you hate on that man, like he is what people are attaching themselves to, and he is like the very measure of how they judge or how they position themselves in whatever facet they're trying to position themselves in. Like Tesla and Elon are that very measure, and they want to measure themselves up against that. No matter how much they hate, no matter how much negativity they put around it, they are still trying to use him and that company as the very measure. So it just tells you like where they are and where he is and who he is and what he's been able to do for the entire planet. Like no matter how you think of him, he's improved a lot of things for a lot of people. Look at the robots. Look at how many companies are making robots now, like out of the woodwork. It was like Boston Dynamics for like 20 years. Like everybody would tune in to watch their videos, and now it's like everybody has robots.
I stopped tuning in just because it became the same thing, jumping up and down from like one chair to the next. They didn't show me anything. And also too, to be quite frank, and this is not throwing hate on Boston Dynamics, it's like, what is a dog going to do for me? I mean, there's a lot of like deliveries and other random things that it can help with. You know, you put some stuff on the back of it, but you gotta do a humanoid bot, not a dog doing the same thing for 20 years.
That dog was 75,000. Well, is 75 grand. Like,
well, now you can buy a Chinese knockoff for like under 5,000. I think it's like $2,000 or $3,000 to get like the base model of. I think it's even made by Unitree. So yeah, like
oh yeah, don't sleep on Unitree.
Coming.
Don't sleep on Unitree, man. Like I don't.
Can I make two quick follow-up comments on the case real quick? So like I definitely criticize the board for making a mistake with relation to this pay package, but I do want to be clear that that's one mistake that they made relative to this one thing. You know, they have a lot going on, and I feel like the board overall has executed very well and has done a great job for Tesla. So I'm not saying that we have a terrible board because they made this one mistake. Then the other thing I want to say is that I will just be shocked if Delaware does not fix this on appeal, because not fixing this on appeal stands to lose them a lot of corporate tax revenue. Now, I continue to be surprised by how unresponsive leftist jurisdictions can be to financial incentives like this. So I could be surprised yet again in this instance, but I just can't fathom not thinking about how terrible the public perception of Delaware as a place to incorporate and do businesses right now, and factor that into the decision-making process for the appeal.
Yeah, there was a post from Bradford who talked about like one of the companies that he's dealing with, Lemonade and stuff like that, and what they were doing. And even Alexandra Tesla Boomer Mama had chimed in, and I think there's probably a lot of back of the room chatter that's probably happening right now with a lot of those companies. They have to be like I just said, Elon is always on the grand stage, and everybody looks at everything he does, whether they like to admit it or not. So I'm pretty sure this is on everybody's focal point. They're going to watch and see what happens, and Delaware will be judged accordingly.
Well, I've heard lots and lots of VCs already saying that they have changed their standard practices, and they're now incorporating either in Florida, Texas, Nevada. Now, is that actually going to be the right solution long term? That kind of remains to be seen. But I've already seen, a lot of movers and shakers who've not only been watching it, but have already taken action.
You will see activist judges on both sides of the spectrum in all states. Maybe not all states, but there are definitely some Wild West jurisdictions in Texas that are known for, that the patent trolls will use exclusively, because there's a judge or two who are...
I actually live in one of those.
Yeah, that are shockingly friendly to absolutely terrible claims. The trick is, a lot of people get up in arms when they see a decision that doesn't go their way in one state without getting equally outraged when the decisions go the other direction in different places. And I think what we need to be is outraged about everything. If we're remember, if we're okay with Elon spending $250 million to get a president elected, that means everyone who has $1 billion can spend their money in the same kind of way to get other people elected who we may not have as positive of feelings about. And then what do? The genie's out of the bottle.
Anarchy. Brian's for anarchy.
Totally. That's me.
That's us. No, I'm sure. So I think we hit. Sorry, I think we hit on a lot of good things there. We unpacked a lot, but ultimately, let us know what you think of kind of some of the stuff that we're seeing too. I think a lot of people are feeling the same way, and we'll see also too. I know Alexandra will be kind of our eyes and ears on the street from a retailer investor perspective, like what you can do to get involved. I know she's shared some information on sending letters to your companies, and she posted a list of companies that are in Delaware that they should move out. So just follow her account, Tesla Boomer Mama, to kind of stay in tune. She'll give all of the best updates. So last night or 2 nights ago, we had the really cool opportunity to have, like, these type of events don't happen. I mean, this kind of, to be honest, felt like a mini Robotaxi event. I think without the experience of driving it, but it was, not only was it more intimate, but it was like, the engineers literally standing right in front of it. So it was a very similar experience of, I would say, the Robotaxi event, just on a lighter scale. And just to tell you the type of people that came to this event, one was Eric, who is the chief engineer on the Cybercab, who I believe reports directly into Franz. He's pictured on the right with Brian. And then we also had Wes, who's kind of I would say kind of Eric's equivalent, but on the Cybertruck. He was the lead engineer on the Cybertruck. So they were the guys seen in those videos going down to Baja and doing some cool stuff out there. But those were like the 2 lead engineers. And then they had a bunch of, like, I think there was like another 6 or 7 engineers there just answering questions. Like, I got to talk to the body design engineer on the Cybercab who had worked on the Cybertruck. So that was kind of like the event. But these engineers were there, and the sales team as well. Shout out to Jeremy, but they were there for 2.5 hours with our members, exclusively just talking to them, hanging out. And you can see in the top middle photo, just again, people were hoarded around and just listening to everything that these guys were saying, because there's just so much you can learn. And so, it was truly a great experience. Maybe I'll throw it, before we kind of go into kind of like the key learnings, I'll throw it to Joe if you want to add any commentary on the event. We did do I think we had like about 100 cars for the light show that we did before this. And so I think Brian already gave a shout out to Simon from xlightshow.io, but really cool light show. I can't wait for you guys to see it. We're going to put out our own video as well on it, I think shortly after. But it was just a really cool event. And again, these type of events do not happen. So it was really cool, a pleasure that, Tesla was willing to put this on with just community members, Tesla owners, and get a lot of feedback. Especially, again, this was not an official Tesla event. This was like kind of more of a club event than anything else.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, it was really amazing. And Wes not only is he the chief engineer for the Cybertruck, but he also handles all vehicle testing, which is why he was there as well. So I mean, he's just a wealth of knowledge and stuff like that. But yeah, these events don't really happen, but I think it's really beneficial for the people. There were people who drove from hundreds of miles. Like, I could think of one person in particular, but but no, yeah, people to be able to talk to these guys personally, and we've talked about this before, because the Cybercab is like maybe like a year away. You know what I mean? Who's to say? But at ballpark it, you know what I mean? Like, Tesla is doing so much PR for this event and allowing so much to happen like they've never done before. It's unprecedented for the company. They're allowing engineers to talk at club events and making events around this vehicle that's not even out yet. You can't even reserve it. You know what I mean? Like this is pretty wild. And they talked about a lot of stuff that I didn't even know if it was okay to talk about, but apparently it was. And it's really cool. So I'll kick it to Brian because he was there too.
There was.
I want to set up
Yeah,
Brian
go
for
ahead.
one more second, real quick. So, in the answer to this question, Brian, how many other automotive companies have created a similar type experience and event where the design engineers were accessible to regular public? This is not a CES event. This is not an automotive industry show. Like regular Joe Schmo owners get to learn key engineering details about an innovative product that literally is going to like change the face of automotive.
So it's not unheard of. There are, if you look at like the Mach-E Owners Club, they will have, I mean, they will sometimes manage to get Jim Farley to show up at some of their little events, but you will never get the full team of engineers. And the full team of engineers, when they know the answers, may not, are a lot better at not giving them. I couldn't believe first that the structure of the event, I thought they were just there to hang out with us. No, they walked inside the rope where the Cybercab was, and they all took positions around it like they were defending it, and their job was to stand there and just answer your questions. And there were a few questions that I asked that were a little too deep, and they're like, we'll talk about that next year. But they were answering everything. And there were some little simple questions that you would ask where someone's one person asked, well, why is the roof plastic? Why isn't it glass? And the obvious answer is, well, weight and cost. And he said, it's more than that. It's the efficiency, because now you've got to heat and cool the cabin. We're trying to get every last gram of efficiency out of this that we can. And additional climate control doesn't make my job easy. So it's solid. And those are little things that we would have overlooked. These are the kinds of questions. So who does this? Nobody. Certainly not to the scale. You will find at, I've gone to the press day at the Detroit Auto Show, and I've gotten 0 press answers on all my questions. I went to the GM booth at, I think, 3:00 on press day. The event ends at, I think, 7 or 8. The press contacts have all gone home for the day. And leave your email and we'll definitely never get in touch, which they gracefully did exactly that. They never got in touch. So there is, this is unprecedented to me. And this is, I think what we're seeing is Elon says, look, we are the future. All that sci-fi stuff from when we were kids, that is us. That is what we do. Okay, so the product's not for sale yet. You can't even reserve it, but I want people to know that the future is right around the corner and we're part of it. Go out and tell the world. And that's what was the message from Eric and Wes and the others was, we want you guys to spread the word. Tell them what's going on. And I said, way ahead of you.
Brian, what were some of the, because I know even probably Joe would say the same thing. We were hosting the event, and so I did not get to talk to them as much. I was blessed to get to talk to Eric a little bit and Wes as well, but it was more high level, kind of like, what was your favorite thing to work on, like on the Cybertruck, for example, which he did say his most favorite thing of the Cybertruck was Elon saying, hey, this needs to be faster than a 911, towing a 911. And they were like, sure, Elon. But they actually had to make it happen. So that was his favorite thing to work on. But yeah, what were your like key findings or stuff? And I know that I think it's Tesla Ali also posted the introduction comments from Eric. And there was a lot of really cool things. I can list off some stats as well, but I wasn't sure what your key learnings were that you took away.
So I've been so deep into the Cybercab this whole time that my key learnings were a lot deeper. It had to be something that we couldn't possibly guess on our own. But it was things like, are those doors final? And the answer is, yeah, these are the final doors. The angle of opening may change a bit, but they're not going to be traditional opening doors. They're not going to be sliders. This is the thing. And they're not complicated. People, oh, they're too complicated. They'll never use them. It has a single pivot point. Compare that to the Falcon Wing doors, which has 4 hinges. That's fiddly. That causes problems. And it is integral to the accessibility of the car. You've got the largest door opening to car ratio in the business, and you need that for accessibility to a variety of people. And I said, well, when they're fully open, is it fair to say that the car is that it doesn't protrude further than a car door that's all the way open? And the answer I got from, and I don't think it was Eric, I don't remember. Oh, it was the door engineer. The lead door engineer was on hand. And what he said is, yes, but it's more than that, because this is 200 millimeters narrower than a Model S. So if a Model S door is halfway out, this door all the way out is still not sticking out as far. So yeah, they have thought of everything. The big thing is, this isn't final. Don't take any. It's real close to it. What they said is, this will be as close to the production model as the Cybertruck prototype was to the Cybertruck final, as the Model S prototype was to the Model S final. There will be differences if you really look, but if you stand back and ask a layman, they'll say, nope, same car.
Yeah. I think for me, probably some of the big call outs were, and again, these are probably a little bit sound bites from that video that TSLA posted, but I think it's 82% of all miles driven, like on the road, are driven with 2 or less people. Also, too, that they deleted essentially 50% of all of the parts from the Model 3, Model Y to the Cybercab. And also, too, the fact that the interior, so not only is the interior like super utilitarian, but they made sure that there's essentially no cracks in the car at all, so that when you're doing tens of thousands of rides or a couple hundred rides a day or however many, that there's not going to be all of this, like your Jack in the Box and McDonald's crumbs falling in there. But really the only places that stuff can fall is going to be where you hold the drink and on the floor. So like when you just think of, and I asked them too the question of like, okay, so we all know this vehicle is smaller. Like, how did you guys approach the cameras as well? Like, did you approach that differently from the 3 and the Y? And they said, essentially, no, well, first off, their whole FSD that they have right now is pretty much built on the current camera system that the 3 and the Y have. And so they wanted to keep it similar. The Cybertruck obviously was different because of how much bigger it is. But the actual placement of the cameras is going to be very similar. So I thought that was interesting. But again, like, they confirmed also no frunk as well. And it's partially just because because again, I talked to one of the engineers, and they actually can look at the stats of how many times the frunk is opened. And it's probably one of those things where they researched it and just realized, okay, if someone's going to be hailing a ride, this is the stat on what an owner opens at, right? And then this is what would make sense for something that is going to be like a ride sharing, ride hailing car. And so essentially they got rid of that. And I can't imagine how many parts that they were able to delete just because of that alone. Again, I'm not an expert there, but those were some of the big things. Again, it's just, this is all stuff, like I said, I think Hans, you asked the question, like to be able to get these type of questions, to talk to the people that are literally designing it, to understand their research. Like, this is not something that businesses will typically share openly about, but and you're talking to the source. They can spout off these facts just because they're there. Eric is not he's in the weeds. He's not like and that's the difference with like Elon Musk versus some of these other CEOs who are just high level. Elon's right there working with them. And I think, and partially, I think, Brian, you called it out too, of potentially why this prototype is a little bit further along. I mean, they're wanting to start to ramp. They didn't comment, but again, public comments based off of the the earnings call and the Robotaxi event, right? They want to go live with this in 2026, potentially FSD. Hopefully they can accomplish 3 and Y being autonomous next year, end of next year. But again, and we've heard rumors that they're potentially even working on the actual production line as we speak in Austin. So who knows? But I was really impressed with over and over again. But like this was like my first time just back and forth with one of their engineers. I think Hans, you're muted.
Yeah, I was just having a minor epiphany, realizing that when they say, new cars to be produced on existing lines, that doesn't mean the entire vehicle is produced entirely on the existing lines, that there could be some additional partial lines that feed into and then piggyback on parts of existing lines. So anyways, just
I did want to add one more thing I remembered about the glass. The other reason he said is glass attracts fingerprints. We want fewer fingerprint surfaces. We want this car to be very, very easy to clean. And like John said, there are no cracks for things to fall in. You will not lose your phone beneath the seat, beside the seat. They did everything they could to idiot-proof it, which is great for people like me.
Yeah, no, it's what they did with the vehicle is pretty incredible. And talking to those guys, what people have to realize is like we are into the Tesla weeds like all the time. We're always researching this stuff. I had so many people DM me because they had no idea what I was sitting in. They didn't know. And so they were like, what is that? What were you in? And all this type of stuff. And you would think people would know, right? But people have no idea. And so I think it speaks volumes for a lot of those guys, especially like Eric and Justin, a lot of those guys who were on the team, to be able to speak about something that they've probably been working on for years and haven't been able to tell nobody about. And so now they can actually speak about it and voice things and listen to feedback and stuff like that from people who are seeing it or whatever for the first time. So I think it's amazing what Tesla's doing and how they're able to just keep evolving, like from a company that did no marketing before to where now they've reached a new level of how they market to people. Like the way they've done things this year has just been like way different. It's pretty cool.
One of the things that I'm interested to see them do with that interior on the losing stuff or side of things is to have an alert when you get out of the car and you left something, and it can see that you left your bag, your phone, your AirPods, whatever it is. They're just like, hold up. You forgot something. Please grab it now. That way we can avoid the time and hassle of dealing with this later.
That would be cool.
That's great. That's and why not? Why can't it? Yeah, I love it.
All right, Joe. I think we'll probably handle this one and then even the next one, the short one as well. But hit this one.
So BofA raises its price target after FSD drive. So
Who would have thought?
I'm a little. Analysts are like so funny to me, man. They are so worthless. So the thing that I see about this is like, because when you watch this video, like he was blown away. He had never been to the factory. He had never been in the Tesla. This video was very telling. So it was like, you handle a lot of people's money, man. Like, my guy. Like, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of people you speaking for. You didn't even know about the company, really? Like, that's kind of crazy to me. So, like, this new age of analysts are kind of funny. But I think it's this is just one of those things that's just telling. I mean, I know that Hans can really get into this, but you have like people like this, and then like the shorts or whatever who are also raising their price targets. We don't know what GLJ research has to say though, but that's going to be very interesting. But but everybody is like waking up. You know what I mean? Like to a point, they're realizing, like when you look at it, like China sales or whatever, and I mean, BYD is like a beast of a different level, so you really can't really compare it. But when you're looking at pure battery electric vehicles, like the only profitable company in the world is Tesla, you kind of like have to realize, like, I think Jeff said something when it comes to FSD that I thought was pretty profound. It's like, what are these companies going to do, and how are they going to act with their boards and with their customer base when it's proven facts that you have a company that's making a safer vehicle that actually works and it's actually doing what they said it can do, and you are just choosing to not go down that path, or not even license it, or not even talk to it. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems kind of negligent at that point. And so I'm just going to be curious to see what happens in the next couple of years overall.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. These analysts are looking at spreadsheets. They're not looking at real products. They're not looking at real things. Bob Lutz from GM did the same thing. He'd been trashing Tesla for years. After he left, he said, for the first time, I saw one in person. And everyone said, Bobby, what are you doing, man? It's crazy. It's truly crazy. Gordon Johnson, of course, raised his price target from $25 to $28. He has seen the light, but he is a very dim bulb otherwise. So I don't know what's going on with that. And I don't care, because when I bought the stock in 2019, I had a friend who said I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And today, only one of us can afford a 10-foot pole, and it's not him. So I think I saw something in the company then that he didn't, and I still see it today. And if you would ask me, should I buy the stock today? I would say, make your own decision, man. There's only so much I can do, and I did it for you 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's crazy is like even Gordon Johnson, I remember he would make comments about how he would not feel safe driving in full self-driving, or even getting into a Tesla. And it's like, I think for me, if you see this company, like let's say you see NVIDIA back before, and it already has a big valuation, like why not go experience it, see if you can get behind the scenes a little bit, so that you can either talk a little bit about and just be able to, because obviously there's certain things like outside of your model that you need to experience to potentially, that could weigh on, what really the price target is. But more importantly, you kind of have to step outside of the spreadsheet a little bit and, go get a glimpse. And I think, again, if Gordon, shout out to my friend Gordon, if he's listening, but like, you got to experience the car in order to really, and I think his price target's like $25. I mean, it's just but again, we all know that, we know some of the family history there. I'm not going to get into that, but all I can say is that you have to step out of the analyst mindset of spreadsheets and go and experience it, right? I mean, that's, for example, one of the reasons why you have people like Brian or James, like just out there who are doing more than that. They have their research, but what are they doing? They're going to events, they're experiencing, they're talking to people, they're trying to experience things themselves, right? Versus if they just did only research and not experience it themselves, like, they wouldn't be able to really see what this is.
All true.
All right, so really the next one, I think it's interesting how it feels like not only politically, but also to a lot of the haters outside of maybe George McCormick, are all falling in line, kissing the ring, and really, I think, coming to the other side. I mean, this is some of your biggest, I think the biggest short trader, Danny Moses. He has completely exited his Tesla short position. I shout out to Bill Gates. Who knows what that guy's doing? I think Yaman's the latest short now, but like, it's just one of those things where like, a lot of these people who have just hated on this company, I think are starting to see it. I mean, you even have this guy over here. What is it? Roth MKM. I mean, his enthusiasm for Tesla among conservative voters, comprising a mostly fresh buying pool, should also lift the demand trajectory. In our view, this boosts credibility for management's guide of 20 to 30% 2025 delivery growth. So I think, again, it's It's just like I said, I don't think I would not have had this in my bingo card in 2024 of seeing 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 it end this way, to be honest. Like, so so this is it's really cool to see. I think the tide's turning, or at least even if they don't like the company, they're at least going to remove their short position and stop reaming on it. Obviously we'll still always have Gordon out there, but yeah, any thoughts on like these shorts kind of like pulling off of the pedal as far as like shorting the company or falling in line?
You just run out of money, man. You screw up for so long. At some point, you don't have any money left to play with, and you got to go home.
That's why I always thought it was really bizarre, especially like for the companies that if you're following the company, the fundamentals haven't changed, and you could see the sales increasing even through the Model 3. You know what I mean? Like 2018, it was like you still want to short this company, even though they've made the Model S by that time, they've made the Model X by that time. You know what I mean? Like you have the Model 3 that's already out. Like, you know what I mean? Like it just seems really weird to me to doubt a company that's doing exactly what they said what couldn't be done. You know what I mean? It just, I don't know. Short positions is kind of a weird thing. I mean, there's people that are shorting Apple. Guess what? Apple's going to be okay. Like,
Exactly.
really bizarre, man.
Well, it doesn't have to go to zero. You can short it. It can go down $50 or
Right.
$20, and you can still make a mint. A lot of investors don't understand that the advice you're getting from JP Morgan and from all of them is just keep trading. It may go up, it may go down, but when it does, you should sell it and then buy something else. No matter which, just always be trading, because if you're not trading, then we're not making money. And if there's one thing we like more than anything, it's us making money at your expense.
So obviously, I think as we all know, Tesla continues to grind. They've been doing a lot of work on autopilot, but they had probably one of the biggest updates. I'm going to pass it to Joe for the coverage on this. Not the short one, but this one.
Yeah, so it's a pretty small update, you guys. There's nothing really major happening here. No, it's just like, this is kind of crazy. Like they've added so much into this update from the watch to like just like being able to see the precipitation and all kinds of things for the Cybertruck and all this type of stuff. But I would like to highlight that you can now set the light show from the phone, because that was my request. Me and Simon had requested it. We also requested that the suspension move up and down. It doesn't have to move a lot, but just a little, like during light shows. And the Tesla team does not think people would care about that, but we're still working on it. But no, there's a lot here, man. Save your dash cam footage to your phone. You got Sirius XM, search along the route, detours.
Biggest updates for me are the Apple Watch. That's huge. Like being able to, a lot of times, sometimes like I'll get out, for example, I'll have my kids still in the car. I just need to get out, get to the back of my truck real quick, do something. And, now I can have my watch as a backup in case for some crazy reason it locks. That's one. And then the second one is being able to save dash cam in Sentry mode. I mean, a lot of times, how often are you actually carrying around a laptop to be able to like transfer the footage or
Right.
having? So I really think that this is going to make fighting crime accessibility to get footage out when something bad happens even quicker, and getting it even to, let's say, cops and other people. So that's accessibility is key here. But this is two of the biggest ones that I thought of.
What stands out to you, Hans?
Well, one of the things that stands out is I don't really have to worry about that around here. I've never seen a clip of that happening in this area, but that's neither here nor there. The one that I liked actually is that I haven't heard a lot of other people talking about was a feature that I wish that I had literally 2 weeks ago. And that's setting the destination charge limit when you arrive. because, I was headed to kind of a camp that was off the beaten path out past Austin a ways. So I had to make it from the Temple supercharger out to the camp and then back to the Temple supercharger. And so I needed to arrive with quite a bit of battery. So I had to figure that out, on my own. And that's not very hard, but it would have been nice to just be able to set, hey, I'd like to arrive at my destination with 60% battery and have it just do it automatically like it does everything else, which is really, really convenient.
The neat update to me that I loved was, how if you're in an accident, not all the airbags go off. The only airbags that go off are the ones relevant to who's actually in the car, because they're sensors. And if you put something too heavy in the car, it says, hey, you need to buckle in your, Gatorade, because I think it's a person. But now we've got fart on sit. So when your passenger hops in, the car rips one for him, and you're like, Grandma Sharon, what was that? And this is, critical. This is the only car in the world. Put it on the list. This is that makes it the best car.
Facts.
So 13 happened as well. I think the big thing here is park to park. So you can literally hit the brake, and there's a button that essentially comes up, or a little icon, and you can just essentially hit it, and it will take you from your driveway and potentially even park it yourself into a supercharger. So this really, I think I've talked a lot about this, especially when they released 12.5 on the Cybertruck, or even 12. Yeah, it was 12.5, or really actual Smart Summon or AS. It's like, okay, so now you have it self auto park. You now have actually Smart Summon, and then now you obviously have FSD. All you need to do is bring it all together, and that's literally what FSD 13 is. And so, really, really cool. Really, really cool that that they were able to put all this together, and the feedback has been really amazing. What have you guys seen and heard on FSD 13?
Just the videos. I mean, we've seen all the videos, and that's what I've been watching, but I haven't watched as many lately because, as you know, I've been on the road visiting you.
Yeah, this was actually a much bigger part of my week. We've got to have JD on the channel already from AI Driver. We talked to Chuck Cook yesterday, and we're going to be talking to Chris from Dirty Tesla today, and then we have Omar on Monday. So we're just kind of doing the lineup of all the major YouTube and X accounts that get early access. And so far from our conversations with both Chuck and JD, and the commentary that I've seen from Omar and Chris, the performance of the software is just really incredible. It's one of those things where, like, on the one hand, it's really surprising. On the other hand, it's really not. But the fact that, like you said, we're now able to go end to end, that means we have data that we're collecting on, okay, how is it starting and finishing those drives? Eventually, we know that like those are very imperfect parts of the system right now still, but because now they're collecting all the data around how to do that properly, we know that that's going to be solved over time. And then the smoothness, the human-like driving decisions. The big thing for me that I keep hearing as a recurring theme is the medium to long-range planning is way better, that it's thinking about what it's going to be doing 10 seconds from now, 20 seconds from now, a mile from now, much more than it has previously, and that solves a lot of the funky behavior issues that we've seen in previous versions. Then apparently the speed profiles really does a lot to fix some of the kind of quality of life annoyance factors that cause people to engage on version 12 as well. So, and I think that even a lot of that's in 12.5.6, which those of us on hardware 3 don't have access to yet. But really, across the board, it's a peek into the future that really is a huge step in the right direction. And the fact that they were able to create this entire V13 stack in a couple of months, because they've it's trained entirely with AI for video on the new Cortex. That means that they couldn't have even started this until a couple of months ago. So the speed of rollout from when they started it to when they put it in early access hands is great. And they say that, this is pretty much ready for wide rollout. And so we should expect within the next month to see pretty much everyone with AI4 hardware probably have access to this. And even that right there is a huge data point. It shows that the speed of rollout, or that the speed with which they're able to develop the system is better than it was when they first rolled out 12, because it was like months and months where 12 had been rolled out to Omar and JD and some of these people, and they were driving it around, but almost no one, it's like a handful of people actually got access to 12 before it finally went wide. So we see that improving. And then the other thing that I thought was fun was that, JD really was very hesitant to put out his first video because he was struggling so hard to find, like, where are the limits? Where can I finally break the behavior of the system? And he drove it for hundreds and hundreds of miles and didn't have hardly anything intervention wise to show for his hours and hours and hours of driving. And that made him very uncomfortable, just saying, well, I guess it seems like it's really good now. I can't tell you anything else.
That's insane.
That's crazy. It's going to be interesting when Chris comes on, because that's going to be a good episode to watch, because his wife was a really big proponent of I think it was 12.5.3. She actually appreciated it, because 10 whatever she did not like, but I think it was beginning to win her over then. So the wife test is always a good test, and my wife likes 12.5 as well. So
mine does not. She says it drives like a teenager and she hates it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 12.5 with the Cybertruck. It's a little bit rough around the edges. There's been a couple times where it's stopped very late, even to the point where it's stopping and then it says take over. So, but there are some of those really like hard stops, and it's not the phantom braking. It's more of like it's getting too close, and then it's like it doesn't know what to do. But like, I'm personally excited for 13, but I personally still think the best iteration for Cybertruck was the very first one. That was the best FSD experience. All right. Well, I think we are pretty much at the top of the hour. I do want to say thank you to Joe for making the slides this week. So please give him a follow. His handle's tagged as well on X. And then same thing with Brian. Thank you for coming all the way down and getting your hopefully what you thought was a worthwhile trip. So thank you for driving over 20 hours round trip for it. And then thank you, Hans, just for all of your knowledge drop on this week as well. So please give them all a follow. I've tagged the YouTube channels for both Brian and Hans on YouTube as well. But if you are on X watching, please follow that as well. One thing
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I just wanted to mention that the first of my series of Cybercab videos is out right now, this very minute. It's, just the beginning. Get your questions in. Next Wednesday, I'm doing an Ask Me Anything about the Cybercab, and we'll have the ability to share more because, we couldn't record it, but we could record it here, and that's what I have done.
How are you in two places at once?
Yeah, explain that.
Well, it's a pre-recorded video.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's you.
No,
it's really
You're live right now. You're live right now. One thing I did we did post a company, Paladin Power. We're doing a WeFunder campaign with. So please check that out as well if you're on X. But outside of that, we will see you guys all next Friday. And hopefully you guys are getting into the holiday spirit. You got Mariah Carey blasting for some of us. But we will see you guys all next week. All right. So we'll